Okay, let's start the show.
For Thursday, October 6th, 2022. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello. Welcome to the podcast this week. Coming at you from San Francisco, California, home of Monday Night Football's victors, the San Francisco 49ers. Santa Clara 49ers? I don't even know anymore.
We're home of a protester that got absolutely destroyed by linebacker Bobby Wagner. Like, that's who we're home to.
The gif of the evening. Yes. But take that, Los Angeles Rams, Super Bowl champions, Los Angeles Rams. And that will be it for the football talk for this podcast. There it goes. Yeah. Oh, sure. I'm just noticing now your Buffalo Bills helmet that you have back there, you massive Bills fan, of course, is the exact same color scheme as the Millennium Falcon t-shirt I'm wearing right now. If you're watching the video, there's a rift that could be happening right there. Anyway, Kishore, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm going on vacation in mere hours. This podcast is the only thing that stands in my way, that and packing underwear.
Oh my gosh.
I might have gotten my priorities mixed up.
And where are you headed, if you can say?
We're road tripping to Bend, Oregon, a place I have never been, but people will regale me with stories of because it's a outdoor paradise and there's good beer and whiskey. And those are things I'm very much interested in.
Are you driving, presumably?
Yeah, we're taking
a road trip. You said yes.
Yeah, we're taking a road trip to kind of take it slow and easy.
Yeah. So how 2 days drive?
It's only 8 hours up there, so like it's not so bad. But there's we have to pass Mount Shasta. We're talking about stopping at Lassen Volcanic National Park on the way back. There's a lot of kind of almost ghost towns near the border. There's some volcanic caves up in that area as you cross into Oregon, and just a ton of waterfalls. And we found this window where there aren't wildfires happening in the area that we're going, so smoke free. And both my wife and I got a booster a couple weeks ago, so we feel impervious to anything right now.
Great. It's just like that classic Simpsons joke, and all the
antibodies
and everything is shoved in that door. Invincible, just like Mr. Burns. Exactly.
Everything's coming at Millhouse. That's all that needs to be said.
Yeah, well, I hope you have a good trip, and we'll get you on your way after we cover the next 45 minutes to an hour of news and comment. I want to kick things off with a reminder for folks who, if you have not been watching Lord of the Rings of Power, it is some of the best television on streaming right now. It is blockbuster TV. I am loving the season. I know we haven't been covering episode by episode, but this most recent episode 6, I want to say 5 or 6, you know what I'm talking about. I've been watching it. Things have really picked up the pace, and they had some of the best on-screen fight choreography, not necessarily large scale combat, but a battle worthy of Lord of the Rings was put on screen, and a climactic ending.
I'm an episode behind. I am more skeptical of Rings of Power. I haven't enjoyed it as much as Norm so far. It's not bad, but I haven't been blown away by it either. It's still much better than The Hobbit. I have not forgotten The Hobbit. So I just want to acknowledge that, but I haven't been blown away with the character development so far. But I will take your review under advisement and watch this later this week.
The something that I've been really pleased about so far, because it's been very curious what Amazon, when they spent almost $1 billion just to buy the rights of the appendices of Lord of the Rings, right? It's a very specific line of boundaries of where they can tell the stories in this planned 5 seasons of television that they're spending hundreds of $1 million a year on, and where they can expound on where Tolkien brushed over, what new characters they can introduce for big fans of Tolkien. there's been some consternation about the kind of compression of the timeline of the Second Age, and how are these characters that you saw essentially in the prologue because of the original
Mhm.
Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings films, that very first opening scene where you talk about the big battle with humans and elves against Sauron and Isildur cutting off the fingers of Sauron. That is where presumably this show is going to end. So it's all a culmination of getting there, and they've already shown Galadriel and Elrond and Isildur and Elendil, and so how can they're barreling toward that, and they shouldn't be taking their time, and yet the rings haven't been forged yet. But I think the pleasantly surprised aspect of it is that there's still plenty of mystery, and that they're still able to, as a prequel, introduce characters like Adar, who is the leader of the orcs, and have really compelling new characters, as well as familiar characters who are very different, like in Galadriel and Elrond's case. I think it is a incredibly gorgeous show, and even though I'm watching it on the biggest TV I've ever had in my entire life at home, it feels like it needs to be on an even bigger screen. And I've also been enjoying rewatching episodes in VR using the Amazon Prime app. So, big recommendation if you have a Quest 2, if you have, if you have, yeah, if you have a desktop headset and you want to tether it and get it and find a way to stream it, that works as well. But a Quest 2, Amazon Prime app, and blow it up so it looks like it's an IMAX screen. It is an incredible way to watch the show.
And this one, the blacks don't black out the story so far. So,
well, you're talking about the black levels of the grading, because that was the thing that happened over the other prequel show, House of the Dragon in Game of Thrones. Although that's been gaining in viewership and kind of seemingly winning the viewership battle between the two fantasy shows, if you want to call it that. That had a classic Game of Thrones
I thought it was going to be sponsored by by LG or Samsung to sell OLEDs. I was like, what an advertisement for OLEDs that blacked out scene was.
I mean, that wasn't just a scene. It was like half the episode was in cover of darkness, and they shot day for night, because in the same way many films, and most famously maybe Mad Max Fury Road, so much of those evening scenes they shot in the daytime and just graded the episodes, gamma graded the episodes and exposure graded to make it look like at nighttime. One of the telltale signs of that is when the actors look up at the night sky and have to squint at the brightness of the moon or the stars, because they're looking up at the sun. And that was very evident in these scenes. And you know what? I'll tell you, even with my LG OLED TV, it was too dark. It was too dark because it's not pitch black. Black levels is not good enough in the low range to surface some of that shadow detail. And if you have a TV that does some auto dimming, for example, you're screwed. You're screwed because
Also, if you have any of those TVs that do the LED black backlight, I think that also ruins the contrast that you need to watch those scenes.
Yeah, or just the dynamic range in that subset of the exposure curve. But I'm enjoying both those shows, and you got to give Lord of the Rings a try. Most people have Prime subscriptions. You got your 2-day shipping, and it's worth putting on, even if you're not a big Lord of the Rings fan. Just putting it out there. We're also just about 1 month away from Wakanda Forever, Black Panther 2. And the final trailer, right? Probably, aside from TV spots, the first and final theatrical trailer. The first one was probably considered a teaser. Was released this past week. Kishore, have you watched it?
Not going to watch it. Not going to watch it. Teaser trailer was so good, and one of the better MCU trailers ever. I was like, okay, I'm sold. Don't show me anything else from this movie. And then Disney put ads everywhere that I tried to watch TV this week for this movie, trying to show me this trailer, and I was like, "No, Disney, you will not beat me." So I think I've seen like snippets of this trailer, but I'm trying to avoid at all costs.
Yeah,
Do you need to see this trailer?
you absolutely do not need to see the trailer. The only thing, if you are a trailer addict and you scrutinize every frame and try to analyze, and that's your prerogative. I do the same thing subconsciously. I've done it for work many times in the past. Uh, if you watch that first trailer and uh, there was a lot of speculation, we'll say, that came out of that first trailer that was, fodder for a lot of content creators and people writing articles about the MCU. This trailer, the one thing it does is it nips in the bud some of the wild character speculation that came out of the first trailer. So, no, there won't be Killmonger in a Black Panther costume, as many people tried to stretch their brains to believe after the first teaser.
I I will say the interesting thing that I did read is somewhere, I think it was Hollywood Reporter had an interview with Ryan Coogler where he said he actually was just about to quit after Chadwick Boseman's death, and that he did not want to make this film because he was so devastated by his passing, and he didn't think that Black Panther movie could continue without Black Panther. And I mean, no one was even suggesting recasting him, but I thought that was just an interesting insight into just Ryan Coogler is an astounding director. If you haven't seen Fruitvale Station and some of his other work, it was really interesting
Creed.
insight into his process. Yeah, Creed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The other quote I heard from him, they're on the interview circuit now, is how much you want to embrace the fun and the weirdness of superheroes. That as serious as this movie may be at times, and the themes that it's going to touch, like it's going to have a character with wings on his feet hopping through the sky. And you got to lead into that, some of that weirdness. And as grounded as some of these superhero films as is in vogue to be these days, they can be silly. And there can be a mix of that. And I'm really glad he's really embracing that.
Yeah.
In Namor. Okay. Off of pop culture, we got a little bit of tech to cover. And the big thing in tech surrounds the mind of Elon Musk. And we're going to talk about the AI stuff first, because a lot of stuff happened this past week. First, Tesla had its AI Day, its 2022 AI Day. And this one was really about their prototype humanoid robot, not
All right.
a person in suit, a body type suit as they had when they first announced this robot, but an actual mechanical being. But if you watch closely and you didn't just watch, the quick cut recaps, it was actually two robots.
All right, let's back up. AI Day is a thing Tesla does every year. And Elon is not shy about what AI Day is. AI Day is a recruiting event for Tesla. It is about showcasing bleeding edge technologies that Tesla is working on to attract engineers.
Yep.
Typically young ones that work in AI, ML, electrical engineering, whatever, mechanical engineering, you can go on down the road, to come work at Tesla. That's what it is. Don't take the projects that you see seriously outside of a recruiting framework. Okay, with that caveat, let's talk about the humanoid robot. So people absolutely took a giant dump on this robot for its limited mobility and motion. Let's rewind the clock to the DARPA Robotics Challenge in LA.
Yes, DRC 2015, I want to say. Some of the most fun Will and I ever had going to a robotics event.
Why don't you describe it for people that don't know what this challenge was?
Yes. In Southern California. Yeah, so this was a challenge that DARPA had set up in partnership with Boston Dynamics, who at that point was still owned by Google, if you recall. And it was a challenge they put out to give out the Atlas platform of humanoid robots that Boston Dynamics has been working on and still been working on. This is the bipedal robot to universities and research groups around the country to see if students and engineers could take that platform or other platforms of their own and accomplish a series of challenges. So they had laid out tasks very much like Jurassic Park. Can the raptor open the door and use a doorknob and do very basic things. And so it was a culmination of those efforts. I don't remember exactly how long the time frame was to do that programming, but they didn't necessarily have to do the mechanical engineering to build the robots. It was all about software and iteration and creating algorithms. So these robots, not remote controlled manually, but would through autonomy and software be able to identify with computer vision time and open and doors, climb over obstacles. But it also was like this like World's Fair of robotics, because you had researchers and roboticists from universities demonstrating like prosthetic hands. So that's where we saw the incredible like neural controlled, highly articulated prosthetic arm and hand and fingers that they've been demoing for a while. NASA was there with their big like spider robot, right? Boston Dynamics had their quadrupedal robots, the cheetah robots, and this was pre the Spot robot, but running laps, doing these sprints down essentially a racetrack or not a racetrack, but a field track, a track and field course. And then the best part was watching these teams of extremely smart engineers like biting their fingernails and cheering for the most mundane things these robots could accomplish or not accomplish, and the lessons they learned from that, and the supercuts of just the comedy of the robots sometimes failing spectacularly, and occasionally succeeding was some of the greatest, just kind of a humbling experience for people, dreaming of a integrated robot future.
Yeah, I think it's a disservice to call the tasks that the robots were performing mundane and basic, because they're trying to mimic human behavior, which is bipedal walking, manipulation of door handles with digits. So anyone that's probably talked to a roboticist or a physicist that works in this talks about how human walking is incredibly complex, because we're in a constant state of falling as we're walking. As you take a step, you're actually falling forward, and that's really hard to mimic with linear actuators and solenoids to create that sort of behavior. And so these are exceptionally complex tasks that we had, I don't know, hundreds of millions of years to develop.
Yep.
And these people are trying to do it in 10. And so we're spoiled by Boston Dynamics, viral videos showcasing this. But what I think is important about what you mentioned about the DARPA challenge is they built a platform to experiment in these kinds of range of motions. And that's what we saw on display with Optimus at Tesla. They built a platform, and they showed a software platform that was trying to control lots of actuators working in concerted motion, performing complex tasks that just a singular group, a small group of actuators wouldn't be able to do on their own. And so, you can hate on the fact that this thing could barely walk. And they talked about how it had trouble. This was one of the first times it's ever been off tether. I was actually not surprised. I found it kind of impressive. It's not a huge iteration from what we saw at the DARPA Robotics Challenge, and it certainly feels a backward step from where Boston Dynamics has been in terms of some of the balance and motion. But this is about the platform and the use of those actuators together. So I was like, oh, cool.
But and we got to also be clear, though,
a reasonable reaction to that debut.
Yes, but I think there's a lot of people sharing the wrong videos about the wrong robots, because the development platform was the one that performed optimally for the demonstration purposes, where you saw the Tesla filmed, because journalists didn't get to actually interact and see this. They saw what was on stage, and they were shared with videos, and the robot that was doing the pouring of the water, watering the plants, and operating, in all the fancy, like, smooth ways, that was a tethered robot, and that was a development platform that they rolled on stage. They did also show the standalone version, which was the form factor, very similar form factor, but what they would hope would be closer to the shipping eventual, they say, a shipping product. And that was very rough. That one required multiple handlers just to get it balanced, and it looked like it was going to tip over any time. So, this
That product ain't shipping.
no, no,
Get
no,
out of
no,
here
sure,
with that.
sure.
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
said, there's like these are early demos, and I'm never gonna doubt how or underestimate how fast development can happen with software, right? If the hardware is sound, the platform is sound. We know that the hockey stick in improvements could be very close, not too far away. But what they're demonstrating is a lot of the learnings that they would have, a lot of the efficiencies from the learnings they would have from the car stuff, including the SoC that they've developed,
Yeah.
the processing board for the brain, the battery packs. That interoperability allows them to make this not a completely new venture. But you're also got to take a step back and like, what's the end goal of this, right? Even if they're able to get this
So,
standalone robot to work optimally, they're talking about taking menial jobs in factories. Like, what's the point of this in the humanoid form?
so the only person that's going to order this is the same person that's going to take their Cybertruck in a river. It's like, it's not like a real thing. What I do think is interesting about a humanoid robot, and I saw projections like it come in at like 20K for a robot like this. What is interesting is that them pursuing this and the kind of targeted approach to some of these battery packs and actuators could drive the price down of those things. And so the 20K is interesting only for me from an economic standpoint. If you drive down the cost of those parts, that's a core component of some elements of the car that they're working on. So maybe this has some knock-on effect. There's no
I
robot
will
going to be
eat
used for anything.
a hard-boiled egg, 2 hard-boiled eggs on this podcast, and I hate hard-boiled eggs. I hate them. I hate them. If Tesla sells, if people are able to buy for $20,000 this robot,
They're not going to ever sell the robot. They will open pre-orders for it because pre-orders are interest-free loans to companies.
That's true. That's true. That's right. That's right. And maybe 20K will be a model. Will be the operate for 30 minutes model that they'll never sell, and the premium model that they'll release will be 50K to start. No government subsidies for robots. Yeah, driving down the price. Well, speaking of driving down the price, that's what Elon Musk's unable to do with his attempt to buy Twitter. But it sounds like he's back on board. He's recommitting to the full stock price because it sounds like he probably would not have won that lawsuit in Delaware, and he's back on board, full commitment to purchase Twitter. Everything that's old is new again. What's going on here?
No kidding. When you sign paperwork to say I'll buy it at this price and then try to back out of that contract, somehow the courts aren't with you. Like, that's not surprising at all. I guess I don't know what to make of this. I remember the last time we talked about this, I was like, is this going to be real? Let's wait. Like, that was my general approach to the story, because it's like there's parts of the story that don't make sense, and I feel like there's more parts of the story that make sense now, but there's still a lot that doesn't make sense. So I'm probably going to wait. Like, it seems much more realistic that he's going to buy it now, and there's a realistic path for him to finance this. It's going to cost him a lot of Tesla stock, but the projections on Tesla stock are positive going into next year with their continued dominance in the EV market, and now with the US based legislation passing is only going to increase the potential demand, even though Tesla missed their third quarter sales numbers. So I see a pathway now, which I didn't last time we talked about this. But if you're asking me why, I have no idea. It still doesn't make rational sense to me why he would want Twitter. Twitter's getting worse as a product is the thing. I feel like it's been stagnant for a little while, and Twitter, I thought it was on an improving trend for a little while, but then Twitter blew, and then Spaces got weird, and this tweet edit stuff. It's all just been very confusing about what their direction is. And in one nod to what he's saying, I have had many more interactions with bots in recent months than I did before, and I didn't know what that was about. And so I'm kind of like, I don't see what the future of this platform is to begin with.
Bot army versus bot army. Digital bots versus his army of Optimus bots, and maybe he's it's distracting from the news cycle. He got ratioed so hard by Zelensky that he wants that he's back to buying Twitter. We need some charts and graphs. If we had the budget, we'd put some charts and graphs of things, of trends and fads that could go nowhere. And right now, the stock on Elon buying Twitter as a thing that's going to happen has gone back up, while NFTs have gone down, and AI art is skyrocketing. So as a real thing, not the jury's still out on humanoid robots between Tesla and Boston Dynamics. Hey everyone, Norm here. I want to let you know that this week's episode of This Is Only a Test is made possible with support from Mint Mobile. You might have heard of them before. I had as well, but I finally gave them a try. I just got a new iPhone and made me look at my monthly bill, not only for the phone, but for my data plan. And I wanted to find a way to lower that bill. So with Mint Mobile, I'm saving over $100 a month on our family plan, because here's how it works. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month with no catch. It's a prepaid plan with no contracts. And by cutting out retail stores, there's no crazy overhead costs that get passed down to you in the form of mystery freeze. They sell online only as a wireless service that's using high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. And you can do individual plans, you can do family plans, and even with the family plans, you can mix and match and have one phone line with a certain amount of data, another phone line with a different amount, and it all makes it much more affordable than the kind of plans that I had been on, at least in the past. You can use your own phone, and yes, the new iPhone 14s with eSIMs do work on Mint Mobile. And the way I've been using it around the home here in San Francisco, the quality has been fantastic. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/test. That's mintmobile.com/test. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/test. Now back to the show. Twitter is also a place, as relevant as not relevant as it may be for so many people. It's also a place that I learn about things that I didn't know existed. And nothing made me feel nothing made me feel, one, so old, and two, believe for a fraction of a second, for 0.07 seconds, an eternity for an android, that we could be living in a simulation, then learning who Dream was this past week and not knowing who the Try Guys really were this week until that became a thing. Now, we're not going to dive into what happened with those things, those people, and all the internet drama, but nothing made me realize how insular the internet may be. And even though I'm online on Twitter every day, more than I probably should be, because of who I follow, because of the communities that I'm a part of, and I track and follow, I'm just completely unaware of entire ecosystems of the internet, like, for example, the Minecraft YouTube community.
All right, so I have a tween, early tween, as he likes to call it. So I have who likes YouTube a lot, and so I've been educated on this. And he even says himself that he's behind the curve. But a couple years ago, he was into Dream because he's a Minecraft YouTuber, and like that was like a popular thing, watching him playing Minecraft, and there was like a shtick associated to him. But like Dream hasn't been cool for a while. This is how my 11-year-old explained it to me. Like my
Wow.
11-year-old, like we went to a live Dude Perfect show, and I was like, these guys are so popular. And like the other day, he was like, they're not. It's kind of, they've been over the hill for a while. And I was like, so who's popular? Mark Rober? And he's like, no, Mark Rober still gets
Oh my
views, but he's not as cool. And that hurt personally. Hearing Mark
God. Oh
Rober
no.
was over. Then I was like, oh, so is it like Mr. Beast and like the Beast Burgers and stuff? He's like, no, Mr. Beast is kind of old, like and
What?
stuff. And these are people that are still racking up views, but you're talking about growth, right? And so I feel I thought I was on the curve, and I was like, I don't know who any of these people you're talking about now. And I felt like I knew. I was like, I introduced my son to Mark Rober once, like in person. Um, and I think I've mentioned this on the podcast. The Glitter Bomb 2.0 was on my porch
Yeah.
at one point.
Yep. Yep.
And I was like, I'm gonna forever be famous to my son now. And like, nope, not cool.
Oh no.
So tell us
Oh.
who's actually cool on YouTube right now, because
Yeah.
we're not.
We're absolutely not. Yeah, we're like I said, nothing has made me feel older or in more need from advice from a tween or teenager. And one day I will have that tween. He's still incubating right now. He's only barely not even 4 years old. But when he gets to 10 and 11, I'll be able to tap him as a resource to find out who's cool on the internet.
I will tell you the thing that I like the most on YouTube right now is I hate to say this. It's a reaction video, but it's a guy that yells at 5-minute craft videos. Be like, what are you doing? 5-minute craft videos are the bane of existence. They're the bane of the maker community. And he just reacts and yells at like, what are you doing? Why are you getting that tool? Why didn't you just spend $1 to get this thing?
Yeah,
that's my favorite thing.
I think one of my favorite Reddits is DIYWHY, and it's essentially that. And it's a reactionary subreddit based on a lot of the TikToks that have to be kind of like either satirical in nature in spoofing like craft projects, or they're doing it on purpose to generate vitriol. And reactions, making things poorly or making things with no real reason why they would go, use one material over another, or a craft project that seemingly is brilliant or novel use, but is kind of not really. Purposeful.
But there is this whole segment of people that have monetized really wrap their head around the YouTube algorithm. Dream is one of those people, but like so many people have monetized like the algorithm tracking like YouTube drama. Trish Paytas is like one of those that my son told me about. But like the Try Guys this week with their like kicking their one of their co-founders out, and then this like pretty earnest apology from their remaining 3. But that was everywhere this week, and it was like part of the strategy to release the apology video.
I mean, there are the trends of like the I'm done with YouTube, right? Every YouTuber goes through the phase of like, like there's some type of trough of disillusionment curve that they can turn into content, or surprise announcement, or I have announcement, or I'm done and I quit, or I'm back. These are all very classically proven thumbnails and titles. And I think it was Mr. Beast who did a panel this past weekend or 2 weekends ago at a convention, talking about how he has a team of 6 people, maybe not their full-time jobs, but 6 people on his team devoted to making YouTube thumbnails, and they create the thumbnails and the title of the video before they film the video, because it's all reverse engineered for the highest amount of clickability.
This show would have done a lot better if we just did the thumbnails. Here we go. There's the YouTube thumbnail clip.
React. Podcasters react. There you go. Kishore, let's get you reacting to, tomorrow or today, as people's listening to this, it's a Google Pixel 7 event, the Made by Google event. What's going on?
So Pixel 7 will be announced. There's been some like reported rumors around the internal specs. Long story short about the internal specs of the phone is no one expects a huge leap in performance from where the 6 was last year. Probably very similar memory, probably, small iterations on camera and processor. I think the big news that will come out is whether they maintain the same price point as last year, which would make it essentially the discounted premium phone on the market. Um, but I'm most interested in the watch. This is the first Pixel Watch. It promises, knock on wood, Fitbit integration, a company
Right.
Google bought year or two ago. So I think Fitbit's exercise software should be embedded on this. It's a round look in contrast to where the Apple Watch is. I think they're going to showcase some more seamless functionality with the Pixel 7, where OS has always been awful, just awful. And
It's
so,
it's it's funny because Apple with Apple Watch, the
mhm,
Apple Watch software has iterated every year, and kind of identified fitness as the thing that people were
yeah,
buying the Apple Watches for, and it wasn't all using the app version, the watch version of every app you have on your phone. That like app development on watches has kind of, I think, really slowed down. But for Wear OS, like Wear OS 2 had been on like every single third party watch, same hardware, maybe new form factors, and maybe a new display where there would be more full bezel, bezel-less display, circular as possible, but it was the same hardware in Wear OS 2 forever. And Wear OS 3, didn't they announced that like 2 years ago? Like,
yeah.
or last year, 2021. Yeah. So, I look at the renders that Google shared of the Pixel Watch, and it's such a different looking watch than the rugged device that Apple announced with the Apple Watch Ultra that they are charging $800 for. Uh, is You think this is going to be more for the every person?
I think this is going to promise sleeker, and the only things that out of their mouth are going to be the words exercise and fitness throughout this presentation. I think they're going to struggle coming at a price point. I mean, they'll obviously beat the price point on the Ultra. That was like
Eight
$800,
hundred
but
bucks. Yeah, yeah.
I don't think they're going to be able to undercut the price of the watch, which I think is what, like 300 to
400, 400
300 to $400,
on the high.
depending
Yeah,
if you
right,
get
right, right. The SE.
if you get the SE or the cellular and whatnot. I think Google's going to be probably in a very similar position. So I think they're just going to talk about fitness, fitness, fitness integration with all the Fitbit stuff, and so just try to move people from that ecosystem over. I'll be interested if they like pull in lessons from Bixby that Samsung developed and bring any of those tools over. I'm also curious if we're going to hear much more about Tensor on a chip, which was a core part of the Pixel 6 launch, and we heard about at I/O. If that's going to be part of the watch, or if they had to go with a different chip altogether.
What's funny, or what's interesting to me about the wearable market is before we had smartwatches be the things that people spent 250 to 400 to $800 on, as a sometimes a fashion statement, as a status symbol. A lot of people who never really were watch people, right? "Quote unquote watch people," bought a watch that they like a your Casio or your Swatch or something that just looked cool. It served a function, as in it was something that you could check your time on no matter where you were, and not need to run on batteries. But also bought maybe multiple watches that you would change up. Like if your watch was a fashion statement or something that was an accessory to your outfit, you would change the entire watch. And the success that Apple's had with Apple Watch is they've made the the watch itself, the uniformity of that singular design, the shared design, as the status symbol. And the personalization, it wasn't about switching watches, it was about switching bands. And you didn't have people that I knew previously spending $500 on a watch and switching bands. People would spend $500 on a watch if they were a watch person or more, and another 500, another $1,000 on a watch, and switch entire watches. And it doesn't seem like Google has understood that, or understands the power of the brand recognition, and the power of the watch itself being the status device, and the band being the customization, the personalization.
they've never treated their watches in the past as a fashion device, which is what watches are to a certain extent. But frankly, the previous like very like Google centric watches just didn't work. Like they couldn't do basic things like maintain connection to the phone consistently. And like with that kind of ecosystem where it doesn't just work, you can't even talk about fashion and all of that kind of stuff because you won't get over the hump. Now
Well,
that they're using a Fitbit platform, which is more stable and much more user friendly, maybe this is the time to basically be like, here's our bands by Nike or Adidas or whatever.
right.
Here it comes in gold, silver, and gray or whatever. That's when we'll see them pivot towards that. But Apple's matured that. All they have to do is copy it.
And they haven't copied it. They haven't copied the band strategy, and they don't have. It doesn't seem like they have a design, a strong branding in the Pixel world for this mass market statement, like the way that we know AirPods and even iPhones and MacBooks are. And I think it's foolish for any company to try to release a mass market product solely on the value of utility. They have to be aware of the power of branding and the power of the fashion statement or the identity statement that that device has, which is something that it's why Apple bought Beats, is because that was a device purely on identity and about the iconography of the device more so than the performance. Performance just need to meet kind of a base level of good enough. But we'll be keeping an eye on that. And also, is it today? No, not today as we're recording this, but today as you're listening to this, you'll probably have watched the Super Mario trailer. I forgot to mention in pop culture, Nintendo Direct solely on the Illumination animated Mario trailer. What will Mario look like? Now, if you've been on Twitter or you followed social media, you may have seen that an image of Mario has leaked, courtesy of a McDonald's ad posted on Discord. And Mario, the biggest difference is he has a collar. His red shirt has a collar now. And the detail on the render of his, you see all the stitching on his overalls, and his white gloves. The cuffs are not a solid band; they have a little cut in the band. Yeah, I guess they had the Illumination animators had to make it a little bit their own. We're all waiting really to see the trailer for the voice, and will it sound like Chris Pratt?
I am not excited to hear the voice.
One thing that Google has been ahead on Apple on is, of course, USB-C on their phones. And the big USB-C news this week was the EU ruling that by 2025, Apple will have to support USB-C on iPhones sold in the EU. So whether that's Apple being stubborn and saying he will include a Lightning to USB-C dongle in every phone, I don't know if that's going to be sufficient.
That would suck. This is also on laptops are going to have USB charging too, right?
Yeah, but they do. They do. All the MacBooks, right? So the new
but all the other makers are going to have to switch to USB-C charging too.
And USB-C is powerful enough. You can get enough wattage and voltage and amperage through that you can charge very quickly on the standard capacity thin and light laptops. It may be moot because next year we're anticipating a big iPhone redesign, and they could, like with the iPad, switch over to USB-C. So they have experience with that hardware for over 4 years now with the iPad Pros, and it would be about time, because it's not about how fast it charges, it's not even about the ubiquity, it's about the terrible data connection speeds. And I swear Apple keeps Lightning slow because they believe in maybe it's a purely wireless phone, like we've speculated over the years. And that would, a purely wireless phone would solve the problem of the thing that I cannot not see anymore on the iPhone 14. If you look at the bottom of an iPhone 14, Kishore, do you have an iPhone 14, bro?
No, I have a 13, and now I'm going to look at this.
If you look at this, one of the things that Apple has prided itself on, really, is industrial design and their attention to detail, doing things, going the extra mile in terms of the manufacturing tolerances and the build quality
Mm.
and just the perfect visual satisfaction, subconsciously how it can be pleasing to hold and use one of their devices in their phones. And one of the ways that people had previously called that out was if you look at the bottom of an Android phone where the USB port was and compare it to the bottom of an iPhone where the Lightning port is, the Lightning port has always been center aligned. If you look at it was not
Yeah.
only centered left and right, it was centered top and down, perfectly centered, which is not easy from an engineering standpoint. Famously, for example, the iPhone XR, the 10R,
Oh, I have a
had
10R right here. Let me
oh yeah,
look.
if you look, the 10R was misaligned with the screws and it bugged people to no end. Do you see that lightning port and how the two little screw holes next to it are
Oh,
offset?
yeah.
Yeah, that was a big controversy. And yet
That
people kind
sucks.
of excuse that because it was a LCD screen on this bezel-less, the 10 design style, and they had to put the port and the controller underneath the LCD panel, which otherwise you'd have like a chin on the phone, as you would call it. And so some people excuse them there. I did not excuse them, but I always look to the pro models as no compromise indeed. And it wasn't until a week and a half, 2 weeks after I got iPhone 14 in the mail and having dinner, I stared at it and something looked off to me. I neglected my children's dinner and I stared at this phone and I had to walk away from the table, go to my office and pull up my pair of Mitutoyo calipers. And I measured and it is the lightning port is about a fifth of a millimeter off center from top to bottom. It is
That's a
bigger,
huge amount for Apple.
a fifth of it. It is something I cannot unsee. And if you have a 14 and you look at your phone right now, I hope you can't see it unwell. You must suffer along with me. Literally unusable, sure. Literally unusable. Come on.
I missed Norm's OCD. It's good.
Goodness. It was more satisfying that when I actually measured it, I realized I was not going insane. I wasn't seeing things. I was like, the tolerances couldn't be wrong. And when I saw that it was 3 millimeters from bottom to center, and yet 3.2 millimeters from center to top, I was validated. All right, last couple things before we talk about some VR because we have Connect coming up next week. An update, a correction to the Bruce Willis deepfake story that not only we talked about, but the entire internet talked about last week. The deepfake studio that announced that they had the rights to Bruce Willis's digital twin for use in commercial products was maybe not entirely truthful in how they were talking about their relationship with Bruce Willis, because Bruce Willis's representatives had corrected them and said no, they do not have the rights. That Deepcake, the company, did produce, yes, a deepfake generated representation of Bruce Willis for a Russian commercial, but it is not. They do not have the sole rights and exclusive rights to that. It's only a matter of time.
That is a pretty significant change where they basically like, no, this is not true. And then Deepcake's like, yeah, but we have like an arrangement. Wow. Tech bro is going to tech bro.
I know.
That is paying fast and loose with the we have rights to this language.
Yeah. All right. We're going to wrap up by talking about some VR. We are 1 week away from MetaQuest Connect. MetaConnect? What is it now? Connect. I'm just going to call it Connect. We'll expect the new Quest Pro. Let's call it the Quest Pro, Project Cambria, to be fully unveiled. It'll be a virtual conference, but it won't just be the metaverse talk that we saw last year's Connect with the big name change of the company, that we're going to see real hardware and the kind of the videos, that the blurry videos that Zuckerberg has shared and teased of the headset and some of the applications and some of the other leak stuff that has come out really indicates that the pass-through AR is going to be the big selling point of this device. That's not a VR device, and even if it has all backward compatibility with existing Quest 2 library, that it's going to be a whole new suite of pass-through AR experiences, from meetings to entertainment to games. And one of the clips they showed was, I think, Zuckerberg doing a virtual remote fencing game segment with a championship fencing or Olympic. What do you call them? Fencer?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fencer. Yeah, that's the word. And that speaks to maybe the latency being up to par, which would be a big question of ours with pass through AR. What the latency is like, what the obviously you get full opacity, but anyone who's used the Quest 2 lately with all the software updates and seen how well it does just the slam tracking, and just with the 4 cameras that are on it now. There's no reason not to believe that even if it uses the same Snapdragon XR2 processor, that it has enough that DSP bandwidth to get all the visual data and then render on top of that. Especially if the pass-through video is on its own separate pipeline and is color and it is comfortable enough, then theoretically it would have to render less in terms of graphics on the holograms that would overlay on top of the pass through, which is maybe how they get it working on that existing processor.
I know the focus is going to be on the hardware, particularly the pass through AR, but this is ostensibly like a enterprise product. Let's just call it a developer product.
Which is expensive, right? That's our way of saying we think it's going to be expensive.
I think we know it's going to be expensive, but I think the thing that I'll be curious about is we've seen hints of them building out tools for digital sales in the marketplace. How is that going to continue? How are they going to use that to monetize developers staying in this space long term? Because I don't think they can subsidize developers just building stuff forever for the platform. So I'm curious about that. John Carmack, what's he going to talk about?
Well, yeah, he'll have another unfiltered session. All expectations are that this will be, even though it's an AR product, it's not going to replace the Quest 2. That there've been plenty of software and plenty of lifespan left on the Quest 2. Although we did see some leaks about a potential Quest 3, which don't know if they would mention that at all. Like the difficulty in the messaging will be setting the expectation of what Project Cambria, who the target market is for Project Cambria, because their target audience is going to be twofold. The target audience is actually going to be, we'll say fourfold. Their target audience, one, is investors to say that the money they've put into AR and VR as the future of Meta as a company is going to pay it forward, one, with a high average selling price device, IASP device that they can make money on, because they don't make money on Quest 2. Like they're heavily subsidized. Two, this other audience, which is tied to that, is the enterprise customers, that they make this appealing to people who would otherwise be spending $3,500 on Magic Leap 2 or working with HoloLens and using and based on their market research with those customers, there is an appetite and a hunger in the training world, in the collaboration software world, in all these places that's not gaming and not home use, that people are
not exercising,
that there's going to be not only an appetite, but the budgets are there to buy business and enterprise headsets en masse. If they satisfy those investors in convincing them that they have a solid footing there, and the enterprise customers and convincing them they have a best-in-class product that's going to serve that need at a great price, that's really all I think Meta's going to care about next week, really. But what people like you and I are going to care about are the latter two audiences. One, the VR enthusiasts who, regardless of pricing, are going to be interested in the technology, and they're going to be significant number of people who might want to just drop, if it's $1,000, whatever plus, then the next hottest, AR device out there, and it need for them, they're going to have probably a higher standard of of just comfort and use. I would say even more so than the enterprise customers, because the VR enthusiasts are maybe more
Mhm.
discerning and more particular if they're going to want to use this on as a fun hobbyist device. And Meta's going to have partnerships to have games, AR games like the fencing game or whatever it is, to satisfy that crowd. And then there's going to be the mass market audience, the people who are thinking of buying Quest 2 this holiday, who maybe have a Quest 2, the casual gamers, people who are maybe looking to buy a PSVR 2 right next year or have PSVR 1. And they need to understand potentially that this is not a device for them, because that would be theoretically Quest 3, but also not be turned off by the pricing. So it's a huge messaging battle for them on a device that is, while on the same kind of track and progression of getting us to full AR, feels like it could be a very different device than the Quest 2.
I have to say, the only thing that really surprised me is that the event isn't in person. I thought for sure, given the stakes, they would have it be in person to get more sort of buzz in the room.
People in headsets, right? Like get people in headsets.
Yeah.
I think about the time when they rented out and when they had the first Quest announcement. The first Quest announcement, when they had the tennis courts set up at the San Jose Convention Center and all these standalone demos and people in Quest headsets. It was such a groundbreaking thing to have convincing tetherless VR running off of a mobile headset, because at that point the unproven thing was inside out tracking and performance and fidelity on a mobile headset, and they didn't have AirLink, but also then link quality plugged into a gaming PC as well. And I think Quest having hundreds, of people in Quest headsets over that weekend was really, really powerful in getting the word out. And the fact that they're not going to have that, to VR enthusiasts, to enterprise customers, potentially to journalists at an in-person event, is kind of a bummer. It's a bummer for me, at least, for sure. Yeah. I mentioned PSVR. Oh, well, the other thing came out is SideQuest. So one unknown is, regardless of what the device will be, we hope that there will be continued support for side loading, because that's been such a big part of the Quest 2 ecosystem, not only with the App Lab stuff, but with SideQuest being a very viable way to get your games out there without having to go through the Quest App Store. And Google just put $12 million investing in SideQuest. So I would hope, as a fan of VR, that whatever platform, whatever marketplace, whatever ways they are getting software onto Project Cambria, that there will be a side loading option as well.
Yeah, I think the important distinction here is this is an investment led by Google Ventures. Right. So I would not read much into this from a Google getting more into VR in any way, shape, or form.
Yes, correct. There's a making money. We think there is money to be made there is some return to be made based on the numbers.
Speaking of return to be made by numbers, what about Sony's? Sony came out with a PSVR 2 projections this week, and they were not shy. They said they have plans to produce 2 million units by the end of the first quarter next year.
Again, the people who it's almost like working against their own interests. They want to show confidence in manufacturing capability, because PS5 has been tough to get for 2 years now. They want to show confidence.
Technically, it is.
It is, absolutely, still is. 2 years later, tough to get. They want to show investors that they can meet demand, but that's the assumption that demand is there. And so they're showing a strength that, based on the adoption rate of PSVR 1, that PSVR 2 won't be like Connect 2 for Xbox. That because Connect 1 is such a big sell-through, that the expectation was that Connect 2 would also have a big sell-through, and it became a non-factor in that generation.
Yeah, these projections seem wild to me. So like PSVR, it took like a year to sell 1 million units. of that. So they're kind of banking anyone that bought a PSVR is going to buy a PSVR 2 and then like
yeah.
tell a friend. Like I don't know
Well,
who's like
well, I think
I don't get.
more so anyone who bought a PS5 would be interested in buying a PSVR 2 because they get to make more of this powerful game console, the supercomputer that they bought. That there's a whole new experience with the quality of the PlayStation, ecosystem of games.
I don't know. I mean, the release said they're going to come out with 20 titles. I imagine those most of those are going to be ports of games that were on PSVR, and so I like this just seems wildly inflated numbers, but not backed by reality. Now, I think if some of these projections are about stealing market share from the Quest 2, maybe, but they're going to have to really make sure the PS5 is as available as they think, and then aggressively market this. And they're like, I'm not even sure this is going to hit the holiday window in the way they want it to.
Well, it's not hitting this holiday window. It's going to be in the spring, and there won't be there'll be ports. There won't be backward compatibility, is what they've said. So,
I think there's going to be ports. There won't be backward
yes.
compatibility.
Right.
That's and that is just going to make a small segment of hardcore users probably a little upset.
Yeah, I could see both sides of the argument of not wanting experiences that did not make full use of of what PSVR 2 is capable of, whether it's from the new DualSense controllers to the way the camera tracks, the better tracking. But I could also see there are a lot of great games in PSVR 1, like Super Hypercube, that would work perfectly well in PSVR 2, and hopefully it's an easy port, even if there is no automatic backward compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that does it this week. A couple shout outs on the site. If you haven't seen, Adam reviewed Phil Tippett's upcoming art book, The Art of Phil Tippett and Tippett Studio. If you are a fan of the Rick Baker Metamorphosis, big, like these kind of like, it's a prime age for these coffee table books that celebrate the life's work essentially of a seminal effects artist, whether it's the art of Ralph McQuarrie or in the practical effects world, Rick Baker. And now you have Phil Tippett and his art book, written by the two guys who filmed the documentaries. The same title as documentary, Mad Dreams and Monsters, which you can watch on Prime streaming. It is they embedded in Tippett Studio for a whole summer, and during the filming, I believe, of the Jarek chess sequence for episode 7, and took incredible photos of all the stuff that Phil Tippett had there, and documented, of course, his entire journey from creature creator to stop motion pioneer, to dinosaur supervisor in Jurassic Park. So that's a book coming out in a month or so, but you can watch Adam's review and get a sneak peek of some of those pages in that video. We also have videos that we shot this past summer with our friends Cowbutt Crunchies. So Reagan and Kelly, who we've only previously met up with at New York Comic Con, and
which is this weekend. Good timing.
Oh my gosh, yes, yeah. So while we won't be at New York Comic Con this weekend, and I won't be at Son of Monster Palooza next weekend. We have videos coming up around those spaces. So they were able to visit the shop and show off their extreme wig styling.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah. The no face wig they brought and made, so good.
It is incredible. The other thing I would say is, didn't new tested VR episodes drop?
Yes. So they're also in not only to shoot some YouTube videos with us, but we have shot a tested VR episode with them and some new ones with Adam as well. Which, if you have a Quest 2, they're in the MetaQuest TV. There'll be a link that you can find in the description here or in that Cowbutt Crunchies video, or you can download the tested VR app. Watch it there. And we got new cameras for Joey to play around with this time, new stereo VR cameras, new Canon ones, and he's able to shoot 8K stereo video, which is no easy feat to stitch and process. from a post-processing standpoint. And then lastly, the reason I won't be at Son of Monster Palooza next week isn't just because there's Connect and all the coverage from that, but we'll be going to London to do a couple days of filming, Joey, Adam, and I. So if you're a listener of the podcast and you have recommendations, we don't have a ton of free time, but I think I might have like one morning to hop around London. I'm hoping to stop by Forbidden Planet, the big store, the big comic store in London,
Mhm.
and with the exchange rates the way they are, maybe pick up some
Go
souvenirs for the
nuts.
family. Yeah, it's a little bit maybe get myself a nice a nice dinner somewhere. Eat some sausage and mash or whatever the Londoners eat, and then pick up some souvenirs. But taking recommendations.
Yeah. Last time I was in London, I think they had a Ralph McQuarrie sci-fi exhibit at the Barbican
Oh,
Center that was awesome, and a lot of his early art, along with some famous sci-fi pieces. So I feel like you should look up what some exhibits that are going to be on display.
you know what's playing Kishore at the Barbican Theater while we're there?
What?
Totoro.
Oh my god! You have to go.
It's sold out.
Oh, just scalp
It's
it.
so
Scalp it.
no. I've looked for the days we're there. They're all sold out. The secondary sites, no
We're
tickets
talking
available.
about Adam Effin Savage
We're
and
not
the
gonna be able to
Tested
watch it.
team.
I know.
Come on.
I know. We won't
Somebody
be able
help him out.
to watch it. You can reach out. My DMs are open. We'll pay for tickets. We'll pay secondary market tickets. Wednesday night is our preferred night. The 19th, I want to say. Just putting it out there. No special favors needed.
Yeah.
But we'll be in London for that week. Okay, and one final thing before we sign off, I did want to acknowledge and give a shout out to a tragedy in the gaming world that we had this past week. My first boss at PC Gamer Magazine, the man who hired me as an intern 22 years ago, passed away. His name was Rob Smith. He was the editor in chief of PC Gamer for many years, was the publisher thereafter, was the editor of Machinima, and also was part of the E3 Critics Awards and part of that organization with Jeff Keighley. He unfortunately passed away this past weekend. So I just wanted to give a shout out to him because without Rob, well, there would probably be no Tested because Will and I wouldn't have met. We wouldn't have founded Tested, and we wouldn't have teamed up with Adam. And I could not thank him enough for someone who was barely in high school, who didn't have a driver's license, who just loved playing PC games and wanted to write about them on the internet and learn how magazines were made. He took a chance on a cold call and taught me so much about being a young adult and a young person, and how to be a professional in this kind of business. I think when you're like you're a teenager. I don't know if this will apply to your son, Kishore, but like there's definitely a span in which you want to rebel against your parents, and you don't necessarily look to your parents as your role models. You look for other sources of of role models, and I definitely was in that age where I was looking for other role models in my life, and I love my parents, but I was in my angsty phase, and Rob and the team at PC Gamer were like my older brothers and kind of my parents at that time, and they taught me a lot and kind of helped me grow up.
I think we never stop looking for mentors in life. There, Beyond Norm's touching message, and you can read more on Twitter. I saw messages from Gary and Mike Micah, Jeff Keighley from Game Awards. There's an outpouring of stories and condolences from a number of games journalists. So I encourage you to search that out on Twitter.
And it's a reminder that the teachers you've had, right, who've had big effects on your life, to reach out to them if you have a chance. And it's really unfortunate. Sometimes it takes a tragedy for you to have to remember that. And but the only silver lining I'll take from this is that it it's helped me take a step back and reach out to some other people in my life as well. So thank you, Rob. Rest in peace. You will be missed. That does it for this week's podcast. We'll be back next week. I think we'll have a trifecta next week. I think we're going to see an appearance of one Jeremy Williams as we recap the news from MetaConnect and Project Cambria. Stay tuned for that. It'll be out.
We'll call it a very
week.
special episode.
Yes,
next week.
Very special episode of This Only a Test. Thank you all for listening. No outro this week. We'll leave it with a little bit of a moment of silence, but thanks. And see you next time.